Hello, in this video I am going to attempt to read as many books as I possibly can in the next 48 hours. Today is Thursday and I have tomorrow off, so I figured it would be a convenient time for me to do one of these challenges and see how many books I can realistically complete in the next 48 hours. I will be sleeping though. I don't know if that's like a requirement for one of these challenges. I don't care if it is because I need sleep. I will attempt to stay up as late as I can. Usually I read till about 3 or 4 a.m. when it comes to the weekend, so I will probably stay up about around that time and then I will be sleeping, but I will spend as much time as I possibly can reading. I don't have very high hopes. I don't think I'm gonna finish like 3 or 4 books. I think realistically I might finish like 2 books. But I have a huge, let me just show you. 2 huge stacks of books that are like blocking my television almost, and a couple more books over there that yeah, they need to be read and I need to try to make a dent in them. I'm in the middle of a couple of them. Like I was reading tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and like I'm in the middle of it and I kind of put it down and pick something else up and I need to finish that. So what will I be reading for this 48-hour challenge? I don't have a fully set list. Like I don't have, well, I have a partial list. Right now I am almost finished with A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is a book that I never thought I'd read. I took it out from the library and I thought I would get a vlog out of it, like vlogging my first time reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I don't really have I don't really have enough thoughts to justify a whole vlog on it. I do have some thoughts, which I will get into, but it didn't need an entire vlog, and everyone has read this series. I think I'm the only one left alive who hasn't, so really, we don't really need another vlog on A Court of Thorns and Roses. I probably wouldn't have anything new to add to any of the discourse anyway. So I'm gonna finish A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then I am going to pick up Fourth Wing because I would like to strike while the iron is still semi-hot and get through this book because it's really popular right now, and I have been trying my hardest to avoid any spoilers. I've tried to stay away from any videos that have been talking about this book because I want to form my own opinion on it, since everybody's opinion on it is so contentious right now. I mean, I saw Beautifully Bookish Bethany has put this on like her best books of the year shelf, whereas other booktubers have said that it's like the corniest thing they've ever read. So yeah, I really want to see for myself what this is all about. So yeah, I will definitely be reading that. After Fourth Wing, I don't know what I'm going to pick up. I don't necessarily have anything solid in mind. I might pick up, what is it called? I don't even, Underneath the Whispering Door, because I've been in the middle of it for quite a while and I just haven't sat down and tried to finish it. It's a good book. I like it. It's just, I keep putting it down. It's a little bit of a downer because I'm in the beginning half of the book and the main character, Wallace, has just died and he's coming to terms with his death, so that's, it's a bit heavy and it's a bit down, a downer of a read, so I've been kind of putting it down and picking it back up and putting it down and picking it back up, but I really do want to finish it so I can move on to TJ Klune's latest book, In the Lives of Puppets. But yeah, so I'm going to be setting a realistic goal of finishing ACOTAR, reading Fourth Wing, and potentially finishing up Under the Whispering Door. If I somehow manage to make it through all three of these things, then I will hop back on here and pick something else to read. But I don't, realistically, if I get through that stuff in 48 hours, I will be pretty pleased with myself. So yeah, let's get started. I will finish up ACOTAR and then let you know my thoughts on the story. Actually, before I finish up ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses, let me get into how I feel about it so far, which is that it's just a book. It's not the greatest thing I've ever read. It's not the worst thing I've ever read. It's hovering around well, it is a 3-star rating, which is what I give books that are neither here nor there. It's a pretty fast read. It's not the worst written thing that I've ever read. Yeah, I am aware of the ACOTAR series through BookTube and watching summaries with Cindy's book summaries and Carrie Can Read's book summaries. So I kind of have an overall vague idea of what happens, but it makes me question what's going on in this book with the fact that well, I can't spoil anything, but we have Tamlin in this book, and then later on we have Rhysand, and Rhysand is, well, if this book is anything to go by, Rhysand is trash. He is complete and utter trash. Yeah, I kind of want to speak on this book in a spoilery way, but I mean, I feel like I'm the only person alive on the planet who hasn't read this book yet, so I feel like if I spoil it, it won't really do much, but there are people out there who haven't read this book. So we have Farah, who is she's taking care of her family, who is very, very poor. She hunts for them and she brings back as much food as she possibly can, and one day she is out hunting and she spots a doe. And she goes to kill this doe, and then a wolf walks out of the woods as well, and she kind of hems and haws, wondering if it's a fairy, thinking that it's just a wolf, wondering if it's a fairy, thinking that it's just a wolf. She knows it's a fairy. She knew it was a fairy. Let's not even go there. But she kills the wolf, skins the wolf, and later on, a fairy from the land of Prythian shows up and is like, who killed him? Who killed the fairy? And Farah has to kind of come clean and say she killed the fairy. So the terms of the treaty between the fairy world and the human world is that there should be a life for a life, but the fairy spares her and makes it so that she will just live out her days in Prythian, and that would satisfy the life for a life clause. And so she ends up in Prythian, which is the fairy world, and she slowly warms up to the fairy whose name is Tamlin, and they have a bit of a romance. And there's also a plague on the fairy world known as the Blight that is reducing fairies' powers and causing bad things to happen. And so we follow Farah as she, you know, falls in love with Tamlin, figures out what the Blight is, tries to, you know, solve things. You know, be a fantasy book hero. Yeah, I don't get Tamlin. I don't get what's alluring about Tamlin. He just seems pretty boring. He seems nice though, which is a shame considering where the series goes. And the book is like 2 different books. We have the first half of the book where almost nothing happens, and then we have the second half of the book where all of a sudden it's like all the exposition. We're gonna cram in every little bit of exposition we possibly can, and every single event that can possibly happen is going to start happening now. Like, the story's just gonna start going, it's moving. And it just is jarring, and the pacing is, yeah, it starts off so slow and just zooms off and goes to this breakneck pace where it's like, okay, what's going on now? And there are several things in the second half of the book that don't make sense. Like, we find out that there's an evil queen, and she's, you know, got most of the fairies in Prythian trapped in a place called Under the Mountain, with capital letters, Under the Mountain. But they're trapped, but they're free because they're walking around doing things that I don't think they should be able to do, which moved the story forward, but they're supposed to be prisoners, I thought. Yeah, I like it. I'm intrigued enough that I already put the second book on hold at my library. I think there's like a 7-week wait though. But yeah, I think I've gotten myself roped into reading this series. I don't want to find out more about Rhysand. I don't. But I think I'm stuck now. Yeah, so that's my thoughts so far. Let's finish the book and see if I think any differently with the ending. Okay, so I finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I liked it. I would say, I said earlier that it's a 3 stars, but 3.5-ish stars. I liked it. I want to read the next book. I want to know what happens next. I am intrigued. I know that the series kind of is wild, but yeah, I want to know what happens next, so I will either buy or get from the library the second book. But now I am going to move on to, you're sitting on it right now, so let me just move you for a second. I'm gonna move on to Fourth Wing, and hopefully it's enjoyable and I don't end up thinking it's the corniest thing I've ever read, because I did pre-order this, so I did get the first edition, so yeah, I mean, if anything, I guess I could probably just resell it. But yeah, let's see what this is about. I'll come back to you when I have some thoughts. Apologies for the noise. If you're hearing my air conditioner, I had to turn it on because it was just too hot in here, and the air quality index is really bad due to the smoke from the wildfires, and I just checked my thermostat and it was like 82 degrees in here, so I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to turn the air conditioner on. I am up to page 70 in Fourth Wing, and I really don't know how to feel about it right now. I don't love the writing. I'll be frank with that. I really don't love the writing. It's a little corny. Violet says "for the win" twice, which is like, why is a character in a dragon fantasy saying "for the win"? It's just a little weird. There is a paragraph introducing who I am assuming is going to be a love interest in this book, because that's just how these things go these days, and she describes him as the most exquisite man she's ever seen, and she calls him flaming hot, scorching hot, gets you into trouble and you like it level of hot, which is, yeah, that's a little silly to me. So far, we are dropped into the thick of it with Violet on conscription day. She was supposed to join the scribes, but her mom forces her to join the dragon riders instead, because no one in their family has ever not been a dragon rider. So even though she is smaller and frailer and has a ligament disorder, she is having to join the challenging world of the dragon riders. And there is a part where she is competing in the first challenge for the dragon riders, and she starts talking to herself about the various lands that make up their world and their like main exports and imports and what they're known for and things like that. And it's like a ton of exposition that's side by side with a lot of action that's occurring, so I just couldn't focus on that exposition. It just whoosh completely gone. My brain just let it go, so I don't know. I have to go back and look at the map to figure out what lands make up this world. I don't even think that any of that was actually very important. But it was there, so I'm assuming it comes into play later on. I don't know why we needed to know the main imports and exports of each of these lands. Yeah, it's just, it's just a little boring so far. They're at a school known as Basquiath. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't have the audiobook, so I don't have a narrator reading it to me, but yeah, everyone just seems over the top violent towards her. There's already a couple people who want her dead for who she is. She is the daughter of the general, so they're not too keen on her being there for various reasons. Her mom, well, I don't know if this is a spoiler, so I shouldn't say it, but they just don't, there's a group of people who just don't like her mom, and therefore they don't like her, so they are very willing to kill her. There is a cadet who is not part of this group, who just seems intent on killing anyone he can get his hands on. He's just annoying. There was actually a moment during the challenge where, like, not useless, I shouldn't be mean, but there is this throwaway character who is put in here obviously because he's going to die, and he's going to die because he's talking about, his love that he left behind, and they're gonna get married after he finishes and becomes a dragon rider. Like, dude, you're gonna die. You just signed your death warrant. You're gonna die. And yeah, he dies. He dies immediately, and I laughed because I'm a horrible person. I just thought it was funny because I knew he was going to die. He was clearly put there to die, and it just didn't have the impact that was potentially intended. Like, oh, this place is so ruthless and it's just gonna kill you before you even start. But, like, it was just kind of funny, instead of being impactful. Yeah, the overarching conflict seems to be that the land of Paromiel has griffins, and they keep attacking the Kingdom of Navarre, which is where Violet's from, because they want Navarre's resources, I think. I didn't really catch what they were trying to get at, but dragons are apparently stronger than griffins, but this conflict has been going on for a very, very long time, apparently, and the griffins are still trying to break the wards of Navarre and break into the country. To tell you the truth, I don't know why I should care yet. It just seems like it seems like the overarching conflict isn't really going to matter as much as the interactions between these characters, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel so far, and I'm gonna keep reading to see if this book catches my interest. So far, it hasn't really caught my interest. I'm just reading for the sake of reading, hoping that something happens where I'm like, alright, now I'm kind of into the story, but so far, nothing like that has happened. Yeah, so I will read some more, and I will check in with you when I have some more thoughts. Good afternoon. It is the next day, and I am 230 pages into Fourth Wing, and this book is bad. This book is bad in the way that I kind of can't look away from it. I do want to know what happens. I am curious, but, like, certain things are just, like, Violet gets nicknamed Violence, which is just, oh my god, so corny. And she keeps saying "for the win," which just knocks me out of the story. Like, this is a fantasy taking place in a world filled with dragons. Why is she saying "for the win"? And her head tingling when she senses Xaden looking at her. Like, why is her head tingling? What does she say? My whole head tingles. And that's not the only time. Her scalp tingles. I hope that's the only 2 times this happens. If it's a recurring thing, then I don't know, maybe she needs special shampoo or something, but yeah, I think it's entertaining in a so bad it's weirdly kind of a train wreck and I can't look away sort of way, so I don't think I'm DNFing it because I want to know where this mess goes, but so far, I'm predicting that this is going to be like a 2 stars. Yeah, I'm not thrilled with having to read it, but I'm also so morbidly curious I can't look away. So yeah, I'm gonna continue on because the dragons have now come into play. So the dragons themselves are actually pretty interesting. Their politics are interesting, and how they interact with Violet and the other writers are interesting. So that's kind of holding my interest now. Say interest and interesting one more time, but they are capturing my interest, so I kind of want to know more about the dragons, and I do kind of want to know like more about why this war exists and what's going on there. I don't like Xaden. I really don't like Xaden. I'm never going to like Xaden. That whole trope of like the dark, brooding, slightly evil guy who turns out to be like the ferociously protective love interest is just gross to me, so it's just not for me. I mean, if it's for you, that's fine, but it's just not for me. So I will never like Xaden, and I don't think I'm gonna enjoy where the book goes regarding that whole plotline, but it's gonna go there, and I'm gonna read through it. I'm gonna keep going, and I'll update you when something else significant happens. Is every other paragraph in this book going to be about how hot Xaden is? Because I don't know if I can take it. I really don't know if I can take it. 267 pages in, still going. Let's see where this goes. I've reached the smut. I've reached the smut. And I'm still reading somehow. I'm okay. Okay, so I finished Fourth Wing, and whew, the actual plot of the book doesn't come into play until about page 450, and then all of a sudden it's just like, now we're going to be all plot. We're going to reveal all this stuff, and everything is going to come into play immediately now. So it was 400 pages of setup, and now finally there is plot. I really want to spoil it, but I'm not going to. This book is note for note. It's been done before, and it's been done better. The setup wasn't great because looking back on the setup, yes, there were some clues, but they were quite weak and not really. There was just so much of Xaden and Violet's relationship and all of the other characters' relationships that you just didn't even really think of the plot at all. And then at page 450 to all of a sudden go back and say, well, that one little clue, that one little thing now comes into play, and boom, it's going to set off all this stuff and everything is going to fall apart, and now we're going to bring in all this intrigue and drama and fighting, and yeah, I won't lie, ultimately I didn't hate it. I'd say it's like a 2.5, 3 stars, and I do think that the story is at a point where Rebecca Yarros could take it into a direction where it gets more interesting than it is. But if it just continues to follow this formula, it's just gonna be in the shadow of better work. It Yeah, it was okay. It was okay. Kind of. There were a lot of cringy moments. There was a lot of corniness. The writing is weird. The tone is all over the place. The pacing is just, it's like this book wants to be a romance, but it also wants to be a fantasy, and it can't really figure out which one it wants to be. It's trying to be both, and it's not really succeeding at it. Yeah, this is like the Atlas 6 all over again. I just don't know how to feel. I don't know if I hate it or I kind of love it. Because it's trash, but kind of in a way that's so bad, it's actually kind of good. I don't know, but I will be reading the sequel because I kind of have to know where the story goes from here. But yeah, this is like a 2.5, maybe 3 stars. As for what I'm going to read next, I think I'm gonna move on to, I have 2 books out from the library. So my library only allows Libby loans to be for 14 days, so I have 2 books that are due soon. I have Our Wives Under the Sea and Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. I think that's what it's called. So I'm a little tired after reading this book dragged on forever. Even when like stuff actually started happening, it was like, all right, it's still going, it's really still going, there's really still more to happen here. So I'm quite tired. My brain feels taxed. So I know that Our Wives Under the Sea is a shorter book, so I'm gonna move on to reading Our Wives Under the Sea after I eat something because I'm starving. But yeah, so I'm gonna start on Our Wives Under the Sea, and I'll come back on here when I have thoughts on that. The best reading partner. Look at this little tubby cat. Okay, so it is the next day, and I am 50% into Our Wives Under the Sea, and I need more brain cells for this book. The writing is quite dense. It's, at least for me, there is a lot of beautiful, haunting imagery all throughout the narrative, but yeah, I, for some reason, find my attention drifting a little bit, and I don't know why that is, because I am enjoying the book. It's quite spooky in a way. We have Leah and Miri. Leah is, I believe, a marine biologist of some sort, and she goes on submarine dives periodically, and this last dive that she was on was supposed to be for 3 weeks and instead ended up being, I think, six months? Something like that. And Miri is Leah's wife, who is left behind to sort of worry about Leah being gone. And when Leah returns, somewhat surprisingly, Leah is not the same person that she was. There is a lot of weird, spooky things going on with her, and we kind of switch, well, no, we do switch back and forth between Leah and Miri's viewpoint. Miri is talking about dealing with Leah as she currently is, and Leah is talking about what happened when their submarine that was supposed to be gone for a 3-week voyage started sinking. So it's quite interesting, but I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those books that kind of doesn't really tell you exactly what happened, more like probably ends in a vague sort of open-ended ending. I don't know that I need it to end in a way that is, tying everything up into a bow. I don't know where it's leading, which is good, which is keeping my which is keeping my interest. So yeah, I'm gonna continue reading this. Hopefully I'm gonna finish this today. It's short, it's only 229 pages and I'm 50% of the way in, so I think in the next hour or two I'll probably finish it. Yeah, I will check in with you when I finish it next. Alright, so I finished Our Wives Under the Sea. Once again, forgive me if you can hear the air conditioner. It's still really hot in here and the air quality isn't the greatest yet. So I finished Our Wives Under the Sea, and it's obviously a very well-written book, but it's not entirely for me, if that makes sense. It's a meditation on grief, on someone slowly slipping away while you question if you ever really knew them at all. And I don't know, maybe because it was so short, maybe because the inevitability of it, maybe because I don't quite know, but it didn't fully hit any strong feelings for me. Maybe because I haven't been in love like that before. Yeah, so I don't know if I can rate this book or I won't rate this book because it's not really, it just wasn't really for me. I can see how it would really impact others, though. It's extremely well written, hauntingly beautiful, and there is some mild body horror. Yeah, so if you are squeamish about that, maybe avoid it. I'm not sure though. Yeah, it was a bleak read though. It was quite bleak because, yeah, I don't know quite what else to say, but I do want to read something happier now, and I was gonna read the other library book I have, which is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, but I don't know that I want to read that. I think I'm going to read for as many hours as are left, which is not very much actually. I might extend the hours a bit as I overslept this morning, but I think I will read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies just because I've heard that it's cozy and cute and that there is a academic rivals to lovers trope in here, which sounds pretty cute. So I'm gonna go ahead and start reading that, and again, I'll check in with you once I've gotten to a significant point of the story. I am 120 pages into Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. So far, it's a slow, cozy read. We have Emily Wilde, who goes to a remote island off the coast of Norway, I believe. Forgive me if I'm getting details wrong. My brain feels like a sieve for details at this point. But she's in a remote island village in the north, I think off the coast of Norway. And she is there to record and learn about the fairies that are native to that village, because they haven't been researched before, and she wants to make them a part of her encyclopedia. And the book is written in the form of her daily journal, so it is academic in tone. There are footnotes, and she's citing papers and things like that. And while she's there studying the fairies and getting the lay of the land, an academic colleague named Wendell Bambleby, which is quite a name, shows up and makes a deal with her that if they work together on their research, he'll get her to a very prestigious conference that she hasn't been able to get to before. So they strike a deal to do the research together, and so far they've had a couple of mishaps, and the village has slowly started opening up to them, and we're getting some local folk tales about the fairies that live in that village. And yeah, A friend of mine says that around now is when it starts to pick up and becomes unputdownable, so I'm looking forward to that. But the slow opening is actually quite entertaining. The world building is nice and slow, and yeah, it's cozy and warm. I mean, like, she has this adorable dog that is like old and just nice to everyone and everything. He doesn't bother the sheep. He's just like this big old dog. And they, constantly talk about the fire and the warm cottage, and yeah, it's pretty cute so far. I'm wholly entertained by it, and I'm looking forward to see how it opens up and starts to get more exciting. So I finished Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I didn't love it. I was expecting it to be a 5 stars and that I would really, really love it, but it's more like I rated it 3 stars. Um, it's definitely cozy and low stakes, very cute. I love the whole found family aspect of it, but I didn't like Wendell very much. Um, and I don't know, something about it just was a little boring. I really like Emily's character, though. I think she's great. And yeah, I don't know. It was okay. I just didn't end up loving it as much as I thought I would. But with that, that is 48 hours. So I finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I did end up liking despite myself. I don't know how I feel about that. I finished Fourth Wing, which is a book. It's a book. I finished Our Wives Under the Sea, which, while beautifully written, wasn't entirely for me. And once again, I finished Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. So I guess I was gonna say I finished 4 books, but I was already like 80% of the way into A Court of Thorns and Roses, so I guess I finished 3 books, and 3 point something-ish books, not 3.5, 3.2 or what, I don't know, I'm not good at math. But yeah, it's a lot more than I expected to read. I think I said that I expected to read about 2 books when I recorded the intro to this video, but yeah, I think I made a pretty good dent in my to-read pile. This was actually quite interesting. I think I might try this again sometime. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for coming along. Bye.